I hope all of you guys are doing very well. Sorry, I'm just looking down. I'm figuring out how many people are in the concurrent viewers, how many of them are waiting, just trying to get, the logistics right. Now, before we begin, of course, I'd need a confirmation as to my audibility and visibility. If you could please just write it in the chat, in the chat box. If I am both visible and audible, we will begin with no further ado because we have a lot to be covering today. A lot. So if I could just have anybody, because we do have viewers, if anybody could just give me a confirmation in the chat box, please, I'd be very grateful. Can you all hear me and see me properly? Perfect. Okay. So we have JKKK Brand. Now that's very funny. I'd like your real name, please, so that it's easier for me to call out to you while the YT is happening. Otherwise, I'll have to keep calling you JKKK Brand. So I think that's going to be a little too funny if I do that. But any which ways, if that's how you'd like to be addressed, I have zero problems with that. Okay, all right. And with that, let us begin. Now, I'm sure that you guys are aware that this is going to be a 4-hour marathon. I will be keeping you busy for the first 2 hours. And then there's going to be another faculty who's going to be pitching in for the other 2 hours. Since categorically the VARC section of the CAT paper, and in fact for the OMETs as well, that is the other management entrance test, English does not change dramatically. It is just a slight deviation of a couple of questions, directions, instructions, and that twists and turns as per the as per the paper that we are attempting onto. But more so, the structural approach of English stays the same. And if we keep CAT on the pedestal, that is CAT being the most important paper, we know that in the CAT, we have only 4 varieties of questions that are asked in English, beginning with the reading comprehensions. Of course, they are the unseen passages. They are the bread and butter of CAT. So if you are not somebody who's good with the reading comprehensions, then that's one thing you will have to get ahead on, because 16 number ki to RC hi aati hai, right? The next set of questions that we have are parajumbles, which are theta versions. Theta is type in the answer, wherein you don't have the options. You will have to manually punch in the option. We then have the paracompletions, wherein one line of the paragraph is going to be omitted and you have to suggest which of the following of the 4 spaces that has been provided is it going to be the most appropriate fit, so that it makes a very strong, a very knit together, like a very tightly knit together paragraph. And then the last and the most fun is the summary type, wherein a small paragraph has been given and you have to tell which of the following is going to be the appropriate summary. Now, whether it be vocabulary or it be grammar or it be any of the other extension questions that we have in English, they will somehow try to put it in the question sets that we have. So if you think that grammar is not important for CAT, or maybe vocabulary is not, no, that's not what it is. Both of those are very, very important. It's just that instead of asking independent questions, they're simply going to see that, okay, if they wish to ask you something around grammar, they'll ask you which of the following keywords are going to be the most appropriate to be able to define the passage. And that actually becomes a check for vocabulary, because it's about the choice of the words, the kind of meaning that they, reflect, and how much coverage are they doing to the passage. All of those things are automatically put to test. So today, for the first 2 hours, I shall be keeping you busy with, of course, the reading comprehensions, because there is no way out. So there's no shortcut to a reading comprehension. The only way to do a reading comprehension is to do more, followed by 5 questions each of parajumbles, which are going to take into account the theta version and the non-theta version as well. So we will start with the one which have the options. We'll get a little bit of warm-up done, and once we feel confident of it, we will then move on to the theta version, which is going to be the one without the options. And with that, I'm going to be ending the session, and this is then going to be followed by another faculty who's going to continue with the reading comprehension, like I said, because it is indispensable. It is the sine qua non of the CAT paper, followed by paracompletions and summary type. So please hold on tight, wear your seat belts, because you are not going anywhere for the next 4 hours. I hope you've had a hearty lunch, not as hearty that you go browse off. So no sleepy, drowsy lunch, but yes, your stomach is full, and that you can sit through, you can power through for the next 4 hours that we have. I will be giving you a 10-minute break in between, or if you feel too exhausted, if you feel there's too much that has happened, of course, you will get your breaks. But what I would really expect you guys to do is be super active in the chat box so that I know and I am very well kept in place with what is it that you require, right? And I guess with that, let us begin without any further ado. Ma'am, how to talk fluent English like you? Oh, it's taken me years of practice to be able to do that. And I'm sure you guys will also get there. It's just that your focus right now should be the paper and not the fluency. The fluency will come eventually, right? And all what you have to do for fluent English is to keep speaking. आप हिंदी में इतने अच्छे क्यों हो? क्योंकि रोज बोलते हो. आप इंग्लिश रोज बोलना चालू कर तो by default हो जाओगे. Because language requires consistency. Language is not academic. Language is a skill. A skill only comes with practice. So the more you practice, the better you get, and that's it. So it's very transparent that ways. And so is the case with the reading comprehension. Reading comprehension also, unfortunately, is not like maths. It's a skill based comprehension test. So the more you do, the better you get. So there are no shortcuts, there are no formulas, there are no axioms that you can put onto the statement, and that's it. Voila, you have an answer magically. That does not happen. And with that, let us begin with what is it that we have. Now, I'm going to start with the first comprehension. I will give you time to be able to read the passage. The question is something we will do simultaneously. So I need you to read the passage. And once you're finished with one slide, simply write a next in the chat box. Once I have a next from you guys, I will shift on to the second page. Please finish reading the passage and then I will start scrolling on to the questions. Mark your answer, don't write it in the chat box. Just keep it with yourself. Post which we will begin with the discussion of the passage. We'll go line by line quickly. We'll try and understand passage kya bolne ki koshish kar raha hai and then jump on to the questions. We will then evaluate every option, why an answer and why not. What am I going to be expecting from you? Simple. I need you to punch your answers. I know a lot of times you're hesitant. We don't want to do it. But this class is not up for judgment. This class is for you to be able to get confidence. So write in the answer irrespective of whether it be right or wrong. That's for me to be able to help you arrive to the correct answer. But if I don't know which option you've chosen, I will never know where you're faulting. Sometimes it is the choice of your option that tells me where are you being short-sighted. And that's how I can help you develop onto that particular skill. So please do not be afraid of punching in the answers. Do that. And with that, let us begin. कोई और नहीं है बात करने को इंग्लिश में मिल जाएंगे लोग once you get into the management schools you're going to get a lot of people to be speaking. Is this 4 hours only? I have to study VARC. All of it is 4 hours, Vivek. I think if you do this for the 4 hours, your VARC section for today is taken care of. You can then concentrate on LRNDI. Okay, and with that, let us begin. So I'm just going to shift aside and I would want you to please start reading. Write a next when you finish and then we will begin. Please start everybody. I'm going to shift next side and I need you to get on to reading. Please begin. All the very best. The very first passage. Please start. questions? All right. Okay, we still have a little bit of passage that remains. So finish up with this reading and let me know. Now, I'd like you to please reserve your answers. Do not write it in the chat box right now. It's when we begin with the discussion is when I would want you to start punching in your answers. So I will show you all of the four questions that we have. Reserve your answers and we will begin with it post discussion. I know you all must be feeling the questions are as long as the passage, but such is the complexity. So bear with it, guys, and continue on it. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm taking the liberty to, to be shifting the slide, thinking that you guys have done with it. So just bear with me on that. Okay. And with that, let us start. So I'm now going to go line by line, making sure that you understand the passage just the way it is meant to be. I need you to match your comprehension of the passage with my description. And soon after we finish with this, we will get on to the questions. Now let's start. The average human spends at least 1/4 of their life growing up. So almost 1/4. Ek chauthai is just all about growing up. In the careful calculus of the animal kingdom, this is patently ridiculous. If you actually see in the animal kingdom, this is very ridiculous. It's been patented that way. Even most whales, the longest of the long-lived mammals, spend a mere of 10% or so of their time growing into leviathans. Leviathans are huge sea creatures. So they only spend about 1/10, even the largest of the mammal. So we spending so much time, the author is like, okay, this looks very dumb. In no other primate has the mathematic gone this wrong, but then again, no other primate has been as successful as we are in dominating the planet. Even if you see the primates, because that's where, that's our progeny. That's what we have evolved from. So even they don't take so much of time. But then the author contradicts this by saying, but then nobody has also been able to dominate like we do. Could the secret to our species' success be in the slowness of our growing up, to which he probes? So there's an anthropological side that has come to it, wherein he says, could it be that we are successful because of this slow growing up? The search for the secret to our success is at the heart of anthropology. Anthro is a root word which means society, humankind. Study of humans or study of society becomes anthropology. So it says the secret of this is in the heart of anthropology. The study of human and their place in the world. So they've also given us what an anthropology is going to be. Whenever there's a hyphen and something, it means it's a description of that. This most narcissistic of discipline piggybacked on the fascination. So piggyback is a पीछे. कंधे पे नहीं चढ़ते थे जब छोटे बच्चे होते. It's called a piggyback. So this most narcissistic of discipline piggybacked on the fascination for cataloguing and collecting the entirety of the world that rose up during the colonial expansions of the 18th century Europe and the growing popularity of natural laws that explain the working of the world in terms of immutable truths discoverable to any man, and it was open largely only to men with the wit and the patience to observe them in nature. So it's basically trying to be telling us what this study or what this subject entailed. So it was all about, it started back in, they've talked about the inception of it, that is in the 18th century Europe, and how it started with and what made it very curious to be able to bring all the eyeballs to the society and the evolution of human. Early anthropology collected cultures and set them end on end in a line of progress that stretched from fossils to frock coats, determining that the most critical part of man, the secret to his success, were his big brain and his ability to walk upright. So they started from fossils and up till the frock. So, I mean, the frock over here is clearly the European times. That's how the dressing of it is. So they start by saying that it started from the fossils until the frocks. And it now tells us everything, right? It's taking into account every speck of it, every iota of evolution ki kaun si cheez kyun hai and why are we what we are in today's times. Everything we are as a species was taken to be a result of our canny forebears playing a zero-sum game against extinction with some monkey men outbreeding some other monkey men. So monkey men over here is of course being used a little sarcastically, but it's us, right? So all of this has just been about, trial and error method, survival of the fittest, and ultimately which monkey man is going to outlast the other. In this grand tradition, we have the man. We have man the hunter, man the fire starter, man the tool maker, and the other evolutionary archetypes that tell us the reason why we are the way we are is because of the series of technological advance. And it is always, it's never called monkey the fire maker, monkey the tool maker. It is always man. So the reason why man has always been able to take the stride here or take the forefront is because of the technology that he understands. However, about 50 years ago, anthropologists made a shocking discovery, women. But then cut to 50 years ago, women came to be. Not so much that females existed, though that might have taken some of the old guards by surprise, but rather that they could do quite interesting research and that the topic of their research was not inevitably the evolution of man. Now, it's not that women were not there, but of course women were so conveniently sidelined. But what really startled them was the fact that they were doing research and not on man. So that is where they became like a little frazzled in their minds. It was the evolution of humans, women and children included. So what they were trying to be researching on was the evolution of humans, which included women and children. New research reframed old questions and asked entirely new ones. One that did not assume what was good for the gander was good for the geese. Now, good for the gander is good for the geese is जो एक के लिए अच्छा होता है वो दूसरे के लिए अच्छा नहीं होता. It's an idiomatic way. So, I mean, this entire research that they were doing was around around entirely new scope, a new approach, and which is why it had newer questions to itself. And there might be more drivers to our evolutionary history than the simplistic model that had come before. To which they also went about by saying there are other factors as well. So पहले तो आपने जिस तरीके से celebratory तरीके से आपने man को ही forefront पे डाल दिया, maybe there are other reasons also. That's what they came up with. Among these new ideas was one that had been consistently overlooked. In some में एक था जिसको बार-बार overlook किया गया था. The entire business of reproducing our species is absolutely off the chart weird. And the fact that if there is no reproduction, how do you think this entire legacy or the lineage is going to continue? So it was off the chart. It was nowhere to be mentioned, and that is what the author finds to be very weird. From our mating systems to maternal mortality to menopause, everything we do with our lives is a slap in the face to the received wisdom of the animal kingdom. And you start from the mating to the menopause, from the first to the last. Everything has been something that we have taken from the animal kingdom. After all, the pinch point of evolution in any species comes at reproduction. Making more of your species is how you stay in the game, and judging by the numbers, we are far and away the most successful primate to have ever walked the earth. And what actually became one of the watershed moments in all of this is reproduction. It is only reproduction that is going to keep more of yours in number, and it is your number, and that is how your domination is going to screech out. Our babies grow to an enormous size and plumpness, and they are so demanding that the resources in one body aren't enough to sustain them. They emerge into the world with large brains and a hefty 15% lard, but still unripe and unready. So they come up with the brains and almost 50%, 15% of all of the other lards, but then they're still unripe. The question is why we have such large but useless babies, unable to cling like other primate babies can, eyes and ears open but with heads too heavy for their neck, is one of the evolutionary theory has long treated as a classic moving sofa problem. So it's like they're trying to fit it. It's a moving sofa problem, which means they're trying to fit it. घर में setting नहीं करते, sofa लगाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. कहाँ बैठेगा, कहाँ अच्छा लगेगा. So they're trying to do this. It's a moving sofa problem, but then they've still not been able to find. So if you see बंदर का बच्चा जैसे ही पैदा होता है, it's able to cling on to its mother. So भाई इस तरीके से देखिए जितने भी बच्चे पैदा होते हैं, they're able to use their instincts very quickly. Unlike humans who are born with such a big head that they take about 7 months to be able to take the weight of the neck, and then they are just clingy. I mean, there's nothing that they can do, these babies. So how is it that humans become so dominant suddenly when these babies are the ones who are much smarter than us? So this has been a problem which has forever been contested. So this is what this beautiful passage was about. And with that, let's get on to the questions. Now I'll give you 5 seconds to be able to punch your answers in the chat box, please. Let's see what do we have for the first question, and then let's begin. Now, one simple trick that always works. Whenever you're doing a reading comprehension, always make sure that you must have a structure of what you want in your options ready. Now, if everybody has understood the passage just as I explained, which means आपने 100 on 100 passage को समझ लिया है, और ये passage difficult था भी नहीं, बहुत ही relatable था, and anything that is relatable, it exponentially increases our comprehension. So we all know what the passage is spoken about. Now, while looking for the options, all what you have to do is anticipate. सोचो कि आपको आंसर में क्या चाहिए. जो सोच है ना, वो आंसर में होनी चाहिए. That is the main ingredient. All of the paraphernalia around it is for a later day. But जो आपने सोचा वो होना चाहिए, क्योंकि वो सोच ही सही आंसर है. This also helps you to not get confused between two options, which I think a lot of you guys might be having this as of a very patent problem, जहाँ पे दो options होते समझ में नहीं आता है कौन सा ले. We get confused and then we mark the one that always turns out to be wrong, right? Okay, and with that, let us get on to the questions, everybody. I have no answers punched in as of now. I'm going to start reading, but I'd like you to please give in your answers until then. Based on the recent paleoanthropological study, paleo is paleontology, that is fossil studying. So paleoanthropological study, so from the fossil until now, that is what has happened. So based on the recent paleoanthropological study that contests conventional paradigms, paradigm is a practice, that contests conventional paradigms in anthropology, which of the following assertion would most robustly undermine? So if you're undermining, what are you doing? You need to weaken. So we need to reverse something. Undermine the author's thesis concerning the exceptionalism of human development and reproductive idiosyncrasies. Idiosyncrasies are those very unique features that we have as crucial drivers of our special species evolutionary success. So they have said that, you know, humans have certain traits, they're very idiosyncratic, they're very specific to humans, and that they are the ones which are exemplary. This is what automatically become the crucial drivers. आपको weaken करना है, हम बोल देंगे नहीं है crucial drivers, बाकी चीजें हैं. तो कुछ भी ऐसा करना है जिसमें अब ये चीज इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, वीकन करना है ना. वीकन दो तरीके से होता है, टेक्निक ऑफ रिवर्सल, टेक्निक ऑफ निगेशन, राइट. सॉल्व व्हाट यू आर गोइंग टू डू इज आइदर रिवर्स. जैसे क्रूशल है, मैंने कहा क्रूशल नहीं है. टेक्निक ऑफ रिवर्सल, उन्होंने कहा ये चीजें जरूरी, मैं कह दूंगी ये नहीं, ये चीजें जरूरी है. आपने बोला इंसानों में जरूरी, मैं कह दूंगी एनिमल किंगडम में जरूरी है. So for as long as I'm not letting you come to a solid answer, I'm weakening your stance. And this is what I will do. I've come with an intention to be at loggerheads with you. And now let's see which of the following is going to do that. The study illuminates a significantly extended maturation period in certain primates, almost equivalent to humans. भाई हो गया. अभी तक आपने पूरे पैसेज में बोला कि humans का ये जो पूरा maturation period है, that is they take the longest time to mature. And that is actually one of the reasons, क्योंकि वो इतना टाइम लेके बड़े होते हैं, तो they evolve in such एस्थेटिक मैनर की वो डोमिनेशन में. मैंने कहा भाई देखो बाकी जानवर भी इतना ही समय लेते हैं. हो गया ना वीकन. तो मतलब बाकी जानवर भी तो उतने ही इंटेलिजेंट हो गए ना जितने ह्यूमंस हो गए. दिस कैन डेफिनेटली बी एन आंसर फॉर अस. इसको रख लेते हैं, राइट. इसमें मैंने आपको दे दिया ना टक्कर. The research asserts that the role of women in primitive societies was primarily reproductive. Okay, that's something that they've already said, because they're acknowledging reproduction. If I have to say that, then I have to speak about others. Plus इन लोग ने तो humans पे बात कर दी. Human is both man and woman. It's man and woman. तो सिर्फ women पे बात करने का क्या मतलब? This is not an answer. The study reveals that most evolutionary advances in early human societies resulted from technological innovation rather than peculiar reproductive traits. Okay. Now, this says that most of the evolution that happened was because of the technology. Now, this has already been supported by this statement. When I say that these idiosyncratic features are the crucial drivers for the evolutionary process, which means it is the reproduction and it is the human development. And it is the human development that has taken to all of these things. Now, which means technology also becomes one of the ways of, one of the byproducts of our intelligence. That is what it is. तो अगर आपने बोल दिया कि most evolutionary advances जो early human societies में हुए वो technological innovation से हैं, rather than these, then you're not weakening. In a very subtle manner, you're sort of strengthening only my stance. Because your technology तो भगवान ने बना के नहीं भेजी है ना, वो तो इंसान ने की होगी. और इंसान ने की है तो भाई डेवलपमेंट ने की है, डेवलपमेंट ने की है तो भाई तो स्ट्रेंथन हो गया. आपको अंडरमाइन करना तो you have to weaken this for me. The research possessed that high maternal mortality rates in humans are not exclusive, but found evidently in other primates also. Now, this is vague. Mortality is death. There's a high mortality rate which is in humans and in other species also. तो फिर तो सबका नंबर इक्वली है, क्योंकि अगर ह्यूमंस का कम है और प्राइमेट्स का आता है तो ज्यादा है, तो आपने फिर मतलब ह्यूमंस का ज्यादा है, सॉरी प्राइमेट्स का कम है, तो हम लोग समझ सकते हैं कि पॉपुलेशन डेंसिटी किसकी ज्यादा हुई, प्राइमेट्स की हुई. अब वीकन किया ना, क्योंकि आपने स्टेटस को शिफ्ट कर दिया, आपने प्राइमेट्स को ज्यादा दिखा दिया. हमें यहाँ पे क्या करना है, हमें ह्यूमंस का माइंड, दैट इज देयर कैपेबिलिटी एंड देयर रिप्रोडक्शन, इसको अंडरमाइन करना है कि ये these were not the solids of history. There are other things also, right? So the only option of the lot that is going to speak volumes will become A. So the one that does undermine my statement becomes option 1. Very well done there. Okay. Let's see the second one. I'll give you 10 seconds to be able to punch in your answers. Let's see. In discussing the unusual trait of human development and reproductive system within the evolutionary context, the author tacitly presupposes certain assumptions, right? So very quietly, very बहुत ही धीरे से वो क्या करता है, वो कुछ assumptions को सोच लेता है. What is an assumption? The kind of information which the author takes for granted. He's already taken this for granted कि यार ये तो होगा तभी तो ये हुआ है. अब, which of the following is not a fundamental assumption? implicitly made by the author's analysis of human evolutionary success. तो पूरे पैसेज में हमने बात किया है ह्यूमन एवोल्यूशनरी सक्सेस हुआ है. Contentions बाद में ये रहे हैं towards the end, but primarily the passage talks about, it's a celebratory passage, talks about how humans have been able to dominate, and it is because of this tardiness of evolution, that is ये slow, the fact that we are slow paced in growing, maybe that is what is the reason why we are so much intelligent. I mean, we are much more intelligent than the other ones that we have. So कुछ सोच के बोला होगा उसने, कौन सी एक बात है जो नहीं है उसकी सोच. बस let's start. The considerable paradigmatic transition within anthropological explorations approximately half a century ago felicitated an all-encompassing cognizance of Homo sapiens phylogenetic progression. Okay, now this is too heavy on English, but simple words में ये बोलता है. Paradigmatic अभी हम लोगों ने किया था, paradigm is pattern. So a considerable transition. अच्छा, जब words नहीं समझ में आते हटा दो. You remove the word. Will it make any difference? No. So the considerable transition within anthropological explorations approximately half a century ago felicitated an all-encompassing cognizance of Homo sapiens phylogenetic progression. उन लोगों ने automatically, so whatever be the evolution and the theory of evolution that we had, they automatically gave regard to the fact that humans are going to be the ones that are going to be the superior ones, and that their transition is going to stay strong and long. So this is definitely an assumption which the author must have made. Now if this is true, it can't be my answer because it says not an assumption. Let's see the next. The idiosyncrasies inherent to Homo sapiens reproductive mechanism, particularly the exorbitant rate of maternal fertilities and the biological occurrence of menopause, encapsulate a sui generis evolutionary stratagem distinctively exhibited among primate taxa. Okay. Now this of course is going very crazy on the words, which I wonder why. But let's cut it out. Let's try and understand. Idiosyncrasies, those innate features, special features. Inherent to the Homo sapiens are we humans. So जो innate features होते हैं humans के, reproductive mechanism के, particularly कौन से वाले की बात कर रहे हैं, ये जो बहुत ज़्यादा exorbitant rate में maternal fertilities हो रही है, that is the deaths, and the biological occurrence of menopause. Okay, so these are just taken as examples. This encapsulates a sui generis evolution. Sui generis means something which is core. Right, so it's like by default evolutionary stratagem distinctively exhibited amongst primate taxa. So all of these monkey and monkey men, इनमें ये दो features बहुत ज़्यादा primarily and बहुत evidently दिखते हैं. That is starting from reproduction to menopause. भाई ये चीज़ तो उसने सोची होगी because humans are nothing but a drop down of the primates. So ये पूरा जो भी है, the entire leak of the primates, उसी के तो part है हम. और हमारे लिए ये चीज तो obviously these are two very idiosyncratic features. Author ने ये बात तो कही ही है. But this information is also true. If it's true, it's not my answer. The prolonged epoch of youthful, epoch is era. The prolonged epoch of youthful development within Homo sapiens ostensibly, ostensible मतलब visible, visibly constitutes an intrinsic impediment towards their survival. Okay. अभी ये तो गड़बड़ हो गया ना. क्या पूरे पैसेज में हमने ये बात की कि ह्यूमंस के लिए कोई गड़बड़ होती है सर्वाइवल में? इम्पेडिमेंट इज अड़ंगा आना. कोई अड़ंगा आता है क्या सर्वाइवल कैपेबिलिटीज में विद इन द ब्रॉडर रेल्म ऑफ द एनिमल किंगडम? ऑफ कोर्स नॉट. सो दिस इज फॉल्स. इफ इट इज फॉल्स, इट बिकम्स माय आंसर, राइट? लेट्स ट्राई द नेक्स्ट. The cerebral proficiency. Cerebral is mind, right? So this is cerebral proficiencies demonstrated by humans, neonates at the point of parturition, notwithstanding their overt physical fragility. So when they're small, parturition is the infancy that we have. Notwithstanding their overt physical fragility, obviously जब बच्चा पैदा होता है तो बहुत weak होता है. Physically he is very fragile. Manifest a superiority in comparison to their contemporaneous primate infant counterparts. Simple. जब इंसान का बच्चा पैदा होता है तो वो फ्रेजाइल होता है, बहुत वीक होता है वर्सेस द अदर प्राइमेट्स. भाई ये बात तो सही है. ये बात तो ऑब्वियसली अज्यूम किया उसने, टेकन फॉर ग्रांटेड लिया, तभी तो पूरे पैसेज में लिखा है. तभी तो टुवर्ड्स द एंड उसने बोला है कि बंदर का बच्चा तो पैदा ही होता है, अपनी मम्मी को पकड़ लेता है, और ये इंसान का बच्चा 6 महीने अपनी गर्दन भी नहीं उठा पाता. सो दिस इज ट्रू. इफ इट इज ट्रू, इट कांट बी माय आंसर, which means the correct answer becomes option C. Now, if you want any sort of assurance, please know, though this looks like a Shashi Tharoor passage, but obviously the intent is only to be able to let you guys know that kabhi-kabhi बहुत boxy words आते हैं, for which you don't have to get scared. If you remove the word and still read, you will always be able to understand the context and the essence matters, right? So don't be worried. Any which way, scat is not going to give you something which is so heavy on vocab either. Next, discerning. Discerning is seeing, visible, right? This is what the word means. So noticing, seeing, visible, palpable, whatever आपको लेना है. So discerning the quintessence of the author's argument within the realm of human evolutionary success. What is the most plausible conclusion that has been derived? अरे सिंपल है यार, बस conclusion बता दो. इन सब के basis पे क्या conclude कर सकते हैं एक चीज. Okay, punch in your answers please. Which of the following can we conclude? The protracted period. Protracted means long, delayed. So the protracted period of development, maturation, this is development, maturation in Homo sapiens, accompanied by the considerable physiological demand of human offspring, exhibits an incongruous evolutionary stratagem within the animal kingdom. But this divergence may underpin means to strengthen our physical phenomenal success. Yes, बच्चा टाइम लेता है बड़ा होने में, but ये जो टाइम ही लेता है, ये this taking of the time to be able to reach maturity, this is what is the quintessential feature that we have, which has, you know, set us apart from the other ones. This is why we are so successful. 100%. ये तो absolutely correct conclusion हो गया. बाकी पढ़ लेते हैं अब. Anthropological exploration around half a century अगर वो mainly male centric and catered to technological advances to mankind, the considerable shift towards inclusion of females and children has facilitated nuance. अच्छा, passage, although male female के बारे में था, but our passage was primarily about how humans are the first in the pecking order, why they dominate the world. This is what our challenge, मतलब this is what our contention was. कि passage start हुआ, ये तो एक organization of the passage हो गया अभी. This is not a conclusion, so this can't be. The survival of Homo sapiens vis-a-vis their primate counterparts can be attributed to their ability to produce offsprings with cerebral proficiency far superior at the point of parturition, despite physical vulnerabilities. No, they're not producing anybody who's smarter. Everybody is the same. It's just that during parturition, humans are fragile while the other babies are prompt enough. This is not a conclusion. The evolutionary success of Homo sapiens is inextricably linked to the anthropological finding that validated the existence of women and accentuated the importance of their. Okay, the passage is not about we giving importance to the reproductive mechanism. वो तो एक segment आया था कि पूरे टाइम तक इंसान सिर्फ मेल्स को सेलिब्रेट करता था, फिर आई फीमेल्स 50 साल पहले, और फिर that is when, you know, the research around women and children also started, and that's where reproduction came to be. But अगर आप ये passage किसी को समझाओगे, passage is not about that. Passage is about how is it that, you know, humans dominate the earth while there are so many other things that differ in the natural order. That is the fragility of the child, the infant during parturition, the fact that bacha is not as quick to learn his, you know, his quips as the animal is, and yet we happen to be the one who are the most dominating in the order. That is what our answer is. So clearly the answer becomes option A. हमेशा हम लोग क्या करते हैं, पहले सोचते हैं as to what is it that we want in the answer. Next, which of the following situation closely adheres to the parallel reasoning exhibited by the author's discourse, namely a seemingly disadvantageous characteristic proving to be beneficial? तो पूरे पैसेज में क्या बात हुई है, एक डिसएडवांटेजेस कैरेक्टरिस्टिक है, दैट इज हम लोग टाइम लेते हैं मैच्योर होने में, बट वही हमारा वो है यूएसपी है, दैट इज व्हाट इज आवर स्ट्रॉन्ग सूट. सो नाउ ओवर हियर द क्वेश्चन इज सिंपली आस्किंग इसमें से कौन सा है, तो एनीथिंग व्हिच शुड बी अ डिले, बट दैट डिले इज गोइंग टू बी अ स्ट्रॉन्ग सूट. नाउ लेट्स सी व्हिच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग. पंच इन योर आंसर्स गाइस. लेट्स सी व्हिच वन. फर्स्ट, अ पर्टिकुलरली लोक्वेशियस इंडिविजुअल. लोक्वेशियस इज जो बहुत बात करता है. Much to the chagrin means to have a sense of pride. Much to the chagrin of his interlocutors, consistently outperforms his more taciturn colleagues. Taciturn is शांत रहने वाले. In the realm of sales negotiation, अब ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता. Illustrating is verbosity. हमें चाहिए तुम चुप रहो, तुम शांत रहो और तुम सेल्स करो, तब ये बनता. इतना बोल रहा है, तुम आगे से बढ़ के कुछ काम कर रहे हैं, हमारे पास तो स्लोनेस चाहिए ना फर्स्ट हाफ में, तो ये नहीं हो सकती. The automobile company that initially struggled due to its heavy investment in electric vehicle technology eventually surpasses its competitors with environmental concerns, spur widespread adoption of electric vehicle, illustrating a case that initial burden transforming. एक कंपनी थी, धीरे चल रही थी, उसका सेल नहीं हो रहा था, they were going slow. The other ones are doing very fast. But some laws changed and this company became successful. Dominating what is it? Automobile company. Definitely. Exactly what it is. Slow and steady wins the race. ऐसे वाला चल रहा है. Next देखते हैं. A mountain dwelling species of the bird known for its extensive migration patterns outlives the other species due to its superior genetic adaptability. Adaptability की तो बात नहीं आई. हमें slowness चाहिए first में. An introverted student, often perceived as socially disadvantaged, consistently achieves superior academic results due to her propensity for solitary studies, demonstrating that introversion can be beneficial in certain areas. Certain नहीं, हमें all areas चाहिए. It has to be. जैसे ये वाला देखो, this became something which became a market leader. Certain मतलब कुछ areas में. That is not everywhere introversion is helping you. It is only in some, but here this company is doing well everywhere. So this is also something which is saying slow है characteristic trait, reserved है characteristic trait, right? But again एक और चीज देखेंगे तो D में introvert होना is reserved, introvert होना is not slow. यहाँ मुझे कुछ delayed चाहिए. I need the angle of delay, which was very important. So that makes it another reason as to why our answer becomes option B over here. I hope this passage was absolutely clear. And with that, let's move on to the next passage. Now, again, I'm going to give you the time to be able to read. Please make sure you finish with reading the passage. So we'll do it in a way. We have 4 passages. 2 खत्म करते हैं, फिर पैराजम्बल्स करते हैं, फिर बचे हुए 2 करते हैं, ताकि आपका भी वो ब्रेक रहे बीच में. Right? The next passage, please start. Please let me know in the chat box when to write, when to shift the slide. I will wait for your next as a prompt. Please start with the next passage. Okay. I have duns from, yes, I do have a couple of duns. Let's go. Now, how do you want to go? Do you want to attempt onto the questions first and then should I begin with the passage, or should we first discuss with the passage and then I'll give you 1 minute of time to be able to do the questions? You want to try the other way? Should I first walk you through the explanation and then maybe I'll give you 1 minute of time to choose the answer? Just in case अगर थोड़ा भी comprehension इधर उधर हिला है तो maybe we'll at least be okay with the answering. I mean, you suggest whatever you think is a good idea. Please let me know in the chat box. How do you think we should go about? Answers first. Okay, all right. So I will let you answer. There you go. Please let me know when to move next. Reserve your answer. Don't ping it in the chat box right now. When we start with the discussion is when we will go. Please go. First the attempt. It's all right, Vivek. Just try to pace up with how much ever post this passage. We are going to move on to the Parajumbles. So I think just a slight that's going to be like a one slide thing, right? And you can know what the passage is speaking about when I discuss the passage. Right now we're attempting onto the question. जितना पढ़ा है उसके basis पे अगर आप आंसर कर पा रहे हो तो कर लो उसको, ठीक है? Okay. Can I change? Can we go back to the passage, or are you still doing the parallel reasoning? I think we'll wait because I don't have a ping from for the answers. Okay, so now this one can be done simultaneously. So let's begin with once again discussing what the passage is about. Now, this one again was a very interesting passage, so let's start. Match what I give you the description with your understanding. Some of the most exciting work on the power of virtue comes from Marty Seligman and Chris Peterson. They went back to the ancient traditions, and what they found was that there seems to be these six domains into which the other virtues fall, with around 24 different character virtues. So there are 24 different character virtues, but उसके 6 main है, right? 6 फिर उसी के क्या है? Further classifications है. They're the kind of things what we know universally are just good things to have, but that people tend to have it in slightly different degrees. We know that they're good things to have, it's just that people have it in different degrees. किसी में ज़्यादा, किसी में कम, किसी में moderate. These are our character strengths, and this is what defines our character. This is what defines us. Whenever we engage with any of these, we wind up becoming a more virtuous person. And the more we get involved with these, we get interwoven with these, the better we become as a person. Hi, everybody. So sweet of you guys to stay put. Yes, there was. So this is very cool. Dhruv has written RCB knockdown. So yeah, a lot like that happened. Now God has His mysterious ways. It's been pouring. It's been raining cats and dogs here, and of course the electricity just blew off. Had to quickly get all things connected, and which is why I had to do the break. But now that we're back, let's continue on this interesting passage. So we finished with the first paragraph, and then moving on to the second paragraph, what we had was the fact that all of this scientific work. So the second paragraph essentially says that every person has their own set of virtues, has their own set of signature strengths, and it is one which they connect to. While it could be कि एक को लग रहा है कि यार मेरे लिए perseverance एक strength है, तो the other person might be like no, this is not for me, this is the other one is for me. So overall इन लोगों ने क्या बात किया, they've talked about the fact that not it's not like a one shoe fits all. Everybody has their own set of strengths which are always going to be working for them. Moving further, now that is what they tend to be calling those signature strengths. They are the ones that you feel as part of a sense of your own identity, and they are also the ones that when you engage in them more, the evidence suggests that you will feel better. So these are the ones in which when you invest, you will always be feeling better. One of my favorite studies in this domain. So again, then the author begins by talking about the fact that my favorite study is how much I can learn more about. How is it that I can improve? So the author always keeps probing, okay, what is that one thing I need to do so that people are going to be more engaged? So should I be paying them more? Is how he goes. If only I get a raise, I would love my job more. That's going to be like an instant reaction that he's going to have. But the evidence suggests that a faster path, maybe a more effective path to feeling better at work, is to make sure you're engaging more with your signature strengths. But then the author says that there's evidence that show that when you invest more is when you reap more results. In fact, if you engage more of your signature strengths at work, you tend to not just love your job more, you tend to perform better at your job, and perhaps not surprisingly, you tend to earn more money. And it is all directly proportional. जितना अच्छे स्ट्रेंथ्स को आप एक्सप्लॉइट करते हो, जुडिशियसली यूज करते हो, उतना ज्यादा आप और काम करोगे, उतना ज्यादा you'll earn more. So it's like one thing leading to the other. And so If we really want to feel better at work, we need to find ways to bring in more of our signature strength. And if we really enjoy the work, what we have to do is we have to make sure that we're getting more of our signature strength. And this can feel a little bit tricky sometimes because you might think, well, I'm a receptionist, or I'm just at work on a bunch of Excel sheets at work, right? Like, how am I going to bring in the strength of humor and zest and so on? And a lot of times, there'll be thoughts that are going to be probing. Yeah, मैं तो सिर्फ एक receptionist हूँ, मैं क्या करूँ? What can I, how can I add more to the table? How can I add more humor, so on and so forth? So there will always be these points that one tends to be having. And there's some lovely work by the Yale School of Management professor Amy that gives us a path forward in this. And then Amy seems to have done some very commendable work. She says that you can engage more of your signature strength at work through the practice of what she calls job crafting. So she says that there is something which is called job crafting. इससे क्या होगा, आप और ज्यादा इंडल्ज हो जाओगे अपने सिग्नेचर स्ट्रेंथ्स में. Job crafting is just the act of taking your regular job description and trying to figure out where you can squeeze in more of your signature. So it's like taking your regular job and trying to be able to improvise on it, trying to be able to see what more can you do to add. You're not changing really exactly what you do at work, but now you're changing how to frame it and the things you pay attention to get in more of those character strengths that you feel like the sort that light you up. So it's not that आप अपना काम ही पूरा change कर दे रहे हो, but आप जो कर रहे हो, अब आप उसको क्या कर रहे हो, with a different perspective कर रहे हो. And that is what really lights up the day. And with that, let us get on to the questions. Now, again, I'll just give you about 10 seconds of time to be able to punch the answer. So I remember a lot of you guys had D. So Sarfaraj ka mujhe answer yaad hai. It is still there. It is D. And so does Tarun have D for the first one. But we have a lot many more viewers. So we will just wait for everybody to punch in their answers. And post that we will begin. So 10 seconds of time and we'll start. Right then, let's see. What implicit ramification is going to be something. Okay, let's read first. What implicit ramification does the author's introduction of the job crafting concept convey about the inherent characteristic of occupational roles in the latitudes of individual self-governance? Again, they're getting too heavy on the English front, but then it's an English, it's just a basic English question, right? It's trying to be asking what are going to be the ramifications, that is what are going to be the consequences, what is it that you can infer are going to be the consequences the moment there is an introduction of the job crafting concept, which has been conveyed as an inherent characteristic of occupational roles in the latitudes, longitudes, latitudes, that is the kind of variety of the individual governance. So what are going to be the implications? Let's understand. Vocational engagements are inherently inflexible, albeit susceptible to peripheral modification via reinterpretation of obligations. We have not talked about anything that is vocational. What we've done is the moment we begin to invest in what we like, in our virtues, we do the same job. But what we tend to do is we tend to do it with a different perspective. So it's not about the vocational engagements. Let's check this. The practice of job crafting bestows upon labor absolute dominion over their, okay, there is nothing which said absolute dominion. The concept of job crafting insinuates that personal idiosyncrasies exert a negligible influence on professional gratification. Again, there is no insinuation, there is no hinting that is happening. So I think by default, आप लोग का answer सही है. Occupational roles embody flexibility, permitting individuals to recalibrate their strategies. Now, this is the important part. Recalibrate their strategies and perception, क्योंकि यही तो करता है, वही काम कर रहे हो आज भी, बट अब आप क्या कर रहे हो, उसका नजरिया चेंज कर दिया, उसका अप्रोच चेंज कर दिया है, to incorporate an abundance of their signature strength. Excellent. The first answer is going to be option D. Very well done over there. Let's try the next one. Again, I'm going to give you 1 minute of time to be able to decide the answer and then we start. Okay. So we have the answer from Sarfaraj, which is of course previously given up, which is A. How about the other ones, guys? Please ping in your answers. What concealed presupposition forms the bedrock? Bedrock is foundation of the author's exposition concerning the might of virtue. So, what is it that he assumes, or what is the one thing that he's taken for granted, which happens to also be the fundamental when he goes to quote might of virtue? All right, then let's start. Virtues are universally acknowledged and conquered upon, serving as an indomitable edifice. Edifice again is moral for personal and occupational progress. Now virtues are not, they are universally acknowledged. यहाँ तक तो ठीक था, conquered upon. Okay, serving as an indomitable, it's not indomitable. Here is where it changes the scope of it. A is not going to be an answer. Virtues are inborn and immutable attributes that delimit an individual's potential for growth. Yes, very well. That is likely to be an answer. So the concealed is छुपा हुआ. So वो कौन सा छुपा हुआ presupposition है that forms the bedrock of the exposition concerning the might of virtue. So इसके पीछे एक concealed granted understanding है. वो कौन सी है? Very good. Tarun also has B as the answer. Let's reserve this. Virtues, while universally acknowledged, exert minimal sway. ये तो गलती हो गया. That's not. They have a very influential sway. Virtues are wholly subjective constructs exhibiting stark discrepancy. Stark is very different. No, they're directly proportional, is what we understood. So it is going to be how your actions are, and then ultimately the byproduct is going to be the society. That is the receiving end. ये तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं हो सकता. Which means the correct answer is going to be option B. अगला देखते हैं. Okay, guys, please attempt onto it. Ping in your answers. Okay, once again, let's see what do we have. In the light of the author's elucidation, elucidate means to be able to represent. So, in the light of author's elucidation, so he's obviously talked about the transformative prowess of virtues and their deployment in the realm of occupational fulfillment. Which of the following postulations would most cogently means validly, fortify is to strengthen the author's theoretical underpinnings? So there are some theoretical ideas that he's tried to pitch. Now, which of the following, with context of this, the fact that ये virtues के पास क्या होते हैं, transformative prowess होती है, right? So which of the following is going to strengthen the fact that हाँ उनमें transformative prowess होती है? Let's start. Okay, we again have a B coming in. The acuity of personal identity and sense of fulfillment derived from professional engagement is invariably
All right, guys. A very good evening to all of you, and my sincere apologies um, you know, for the session got stopped because it was pouring heavily where the previous faculty was taking this session. So वहाँ पे थोड़ा सा issue आ गया, but nevertheless I was scheduled to take this session at 4 o'clock. तो ठीक है, here we are. तो इस सेशन को आगे लेके जाते हुए हम लोग यहाँ पे डिस्कस करेंगे पैरा कंप्लीशन एंड रीडिंग कॉम्प्रिहेंशन। नाउ पैरा कंप्लीशन की अगर हम लोग बात करें तो देखो, पैरा कंप्लीशन एक ऐसा ऐसा टॉपिक है जो काफी बार स्टूडेंट्स को ट्रिक कर जाता है, क्योंकि जो ऑप्शंस होते हैं वो काफी क्लोज होते हैं एंड हमें सारे के सारे ऑप्शंस जो है वो पैराग्राफ को कंप्लीट करते हुए दिखाई देते हैं। तो मैंने यहाँ पे आपके लिए कुछ क्वेश्चंस रखे हुए हैं ऑन पैरा कंप्लीशन, एंड द बेस्ट पार्ट इज मैंने यहाँ पे आप लोगों के लिए ट्रैप्स भी रखे हुए हैं। सो आई बी एबल टू एक्सप्लेन दोस ट्रैप्स टू यू along with examples, एंड उसके बाद फिर मैं आपको क्वेश्चंस की ओर लेके चलूंगा। सो विदाउट वेस्टिंग टाइम फर्दर हम लोग आगे बढ़ते हैं। तो देखिए, सबसे पहले हम लोग एक स्ट्रेटजी जो है वो समझ लेते हैं कि पैरा कंप्लीशन क्वेश्चंस को जब हमें सॉल्व करना होता है, कौन कौन सी बातों को ध्यान में रखना होता है। सी, हम सबको पता है कि हमें आर्ग्यूमेंट को इवेंचुअली आगे लेके जाना है। अब कभी कभार आगे लेके जाने का मतलब आर्ग्यूमेंट को एक लॉजिकल कंक्लूजन देना होता है, या फिर कभी कभार आइडिया को कंटिन्यू करना होता है। सो सबसे पहले वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड द मेन आइडिया कि भाई बात किस बारे में हो रही है, क्योंकि अगर ये चीज समझ में नहीं आएगी तो जो ऑप्शंस में ट्रैप्स रखे हुए हैं वहां पे कहीं ना कहीं फंस जाओगे। एंड टोन टोन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। क्यों? क्योंकि वहां पे ऑथर क्या पता क्रिटिसिज्म, कभी कभार टॉपिक ऑप्शन का एंड आर्ग्यूमेंट का सेम होता है, फिर भी वो ऑप्शन जो है आपका आंसर नहीं होता। रीजन, वहां पे टोन मिसमैच होता है। तो आर्ग्यूमेंट जो है, अगर उसका टोन क्रिटिकल है तो ऑप्शन का टोन भी सेम होना चाहिए। सो यू नीड टू गेट द आइडिया अबाउट मेन आइडिया एंड टोन। देन इज इट बिल्डिंग टू द कंक्लूजन और इम्प्लीकेशन, कि भाई उसके बेसिस पे क्या ट्रू है, ऑथर उस तरफ जा रहा है या फिर ऑथर जो है वो लॉजिकली उसको कंक्लूड करने के लिए आगे बढ़ रहा है। सो यू नीड टू प्रिडिक्ट दिस मेंटली, राइट? एंड आफ्टर दैट यू नीड टू एलिमिनेट ऑफ टॉपिक और कॉन्ट्रोडिक्टरी ऑप्शंस। अब मैं ऐसा बिल्कुल भी नहीं क्लेम कर रहा कि चारों की चारों ऑप्शंस इतने क्लोज होते हैं, बट एटलीस्ट दो ऑप्शंस में आके आप लोग अटक जाते हो। दो ऑप्शंस को आप एलिमिनेट कर लेते हो, यू आर एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई कि यार ये तो ऑफ टॉपिक है, या फिर ये कॉन्ट्रोडिक्टरी, ये ऐसा ऑप्शन है जो कॉन्ट्रोडिक्ट कर रहा है, एंड चूज द वन दैट मेंटेन्स द कोहेरेंस। तो ऐसे कौन कौन से ट्रैप्स हैं? ये है वो ट्रैप्स जो मुझे आपके साथ डिस्कस करना है। नाउ इन ट्रैप्स का मतलब, कभी कभार ऐसा होता है कि एक नया आइडिया जो है वो आपके सामने आ जाता है, राइट? सो हमें ऐसे ऑप्शंस को देखना है। अब ये ट्रैप्स जो है, सिंस आई केप्ट दीज ट्रैप्स ऑन द स्क्रीन फॉर ऑल ऑफ यू, बड़ा सिंपल लग रहा होगा कि सर नया आइडिया है, हम लोग एलिमिनेट कर देंगे क्या? ऑप्शन वापस जो है वो दिया जा रहा है, जो पैराग्राफ में कहा हुआ है, हम इसको आराम से एलिमिनेट कर देंगे। जब ये ऑप्शंस में रख के आते हैं ये ट्रैप्स, दैट्स वेयर द थिंग्स गेट डिफिकल्ट। सो हम लोग इसको एक बार समझते हैं। जैसे टॉपिक शिफ्ट की मैं यहाँ पे आपसे बात करता हूँ, ठीक है? सो टॉपिक शिफ्ट में देखो, पैराग्राफ जो है वो डिस्कस कर रहा है हाउ इंट्रोवर्ट्स थ्राइव इन सॉलिट्यूड रिच एनवायरनमेंट्स। जहां पे एनवायरनमेंट ऐसा है, कोई ज्यादा बात करने के लिए नहीं है, वहां पे इंट्रोवर्ट्स जो है वो कैसे थ्राइव करते हैं। ट्रैप ऑप्शन कैसा होगा? साइट्स रिसर्च कंपेयरिंग इंट्रोवर्ट्स एंड एक्सट्रोवर्ट्स इन कॉर्पोरेट टीम। कि भाई इंट्रोवर्ट्स एंड एक्सट्रोवर्ट्स का वहां पे आपको कंपैरिजन देखने को मिलेगा। सो बेसिकली ये ऐसा ऑप्शन है जहां पे आपको टॉपिक जो है वो शिफ्ट होता हुआ दिखाई दे रहा है, ठीक है? क्यों? क्योंकि द आर्ग्यूमेंट ओनली टॉक्स अबाउट इंट्रोवर्ट्स थ्राइविंग इन सॉलिट्यूड रिच एनवायरनमेंट्स, बट यहाँ पे इंट्रोवर्ट कितना अच्छा या बुरा परफॉर्म करता है इन कंपैरिजन टू एक्सट्रोवर्ट। सो टॉपिक जो है शिफ्ट होता हुआ दिखाई दे रहा है। नेक्स्ट काइंड ऑफ ट्रैप इज स्कोप डिस्टॉर्शन। हम लोग स्कोप के बियॉन्ड चले जाते हैं। सो पैराग्राफ जो है, इट एक्सप्लेन्स द मेडिटेशन, इट एक्सप्लेन्स दैट मेडिटेशन इंप्रूव्स फोकस थ्रू डेली प्रैक्टिस, राइट? क्वेश्चंस वेदर कॉन्शियसनेस कैन एवर ट्रूली बी मेजर्ड, कि भाई कॉन्शियसनेस को हम लोग मेजर भी कर सकते हैं क्या? वहां पे इंप्रूव करने की बात बोल रहा है, एंड इसने स्कोप को ब्रीच कर दिया, बोला कि इसको क्या मेजर भी किया जा सकता है। सो दिस इज स्कोप डिस्टॉर्शन। नेक्स्ट जो पैराग्राफ है, इट डिस्क्राइब्स द बेनिफिट्स ऑफ डिजिटल नोट टेकिंग फॉर स्टूडेंट प्रोडक्टिविटी। भाई डिजिटल नोट टेकिंग क्या स्टूडेंट प्रोडक्टिविटी के लिए अच्छा है? पैराग्राफ ये डिस्कस कर रहा है। argues that attempts to systematize thought are inherently flawed. So basically overreach कर रहा है, क्योंकि वो बोल रहा है कि जितने भी अटेम्प्ट्स हैं जो हम लोग ऐसा करने की बात करते हैं, अब टोन, इन दोनों में टोन का भी एक बहुत बड़ा डिफरेंस है। क्यों? आप अगर देखें तो यहां पे डिस्क्राइब करा बेनिफिट्स ऑफ डिजिटल नोट टेकिंग, राइट, एंड यहां पे टोन शिफ्ट हो गया, वहां पे बोल रहा है ऑल अटेम्प्ट्स टू सिस्टमेटाइज थॉट्स आर इनहेरेंटली फ्लॉड। सो टोन भी आपको चेंज होता हुआ दिखाई दे रहा है। नेक्स्ट, premise echo. So outlines how early farmers stored surplus grain to survive droughts. And trap option कैसा होगा? Having surplus grain helped in times of scarcity. ठीक है, ये एक तरीके से जो चीज वहां पे ऑलरेडी मेंशन है उसी को ही वापस मेंशन कर रहा है, तो ये पैराग्राफ को आगे नहीं लेके जा रहा। ठीक है, सो सरप्लस ग्रेन हेल्प इन टाइम्स ऑफ स्कैरसिटी, एंड ऊपर भी यही बता रहा है हाउ अर्ली फार्मर्स स्टोर्ड सरप्लस ग्रेन टू सर्वाइव ड्रॉट्स। सो प्रेमाइस एको है। एंड टेंजेंशियल फैक्ट, जैसे एनालाइजेस हाउ डेसिमल सिस्टम्स इंप्रूव ट्रेड कैलकुलेशंस। Trap option mentions that ancient Indian mathematicians also contributed to trigonometry. So आपको यहाँ पे टेंजेंट कि भाई ये जो पार्ट है ऑल्सो ये टेंजेंशियल फैक्ट है कि भाई ये तो हुआ, इसके साथ साथ ये भी हुआ। सो जब ये पैराग्राफ के फॉर्म में आपको देखने को मिलता है, दैट्स वेयर थिंग्स गेट अ लिटिल ट्रिकी। तो मैंने आपके लिए एक क्वेश्चन रखा हुआ है यहाँ पे, हम लोग इन्हीं सारे ट्रैप्स को कंसिडर करते हुए इस क्वेश्चन को सॉल्व करेंगे। लेट्स सी आपकी तरफ से क्या जवाब मिलता है मुझे। हाय सिया। सो अगर यहाँ पे आप देखें तो इट टॉक्स अबाउट बिहेवियरल जेनेटिसिस्ट, they have found out that effects of being brought up in a given family are sometimes detectable in childhood। कि भाई आपका जो फैमिली एनवायरनमेंट है वो आपके चाइल्डहुड में दिखाई देता है, बट दे टेंड टू पीटर आउट बाय द टाइम द चाइल्ड हैज ग्रोन अप। बट जैसे जैसे आप बड़े होते गए वो जो फैमिली इन्फ्लुएंस था वो पीटर आउट होता जाता है। दैट इज the reach of genes appears to get stronger as we age, not weaker. Perhaps our genes affect our environments, which in turn affect ourselves. हमारा जो जीन है वो हमारे एनवायरनमेंट को इम्पैक्ट करता है व्हेन वी आर ग्रोन अप, जो इन टर्न हमें इम्पैक्ट करता है। Young children are at the mercy of parents and have to adapt to the world that is not of their choosing। वो ऐसे young children जो हैं they are at the mercy of their parents and they are forced to adapt to the world that is not of their choosing। As they get older they can gravitate to micro environment best suited to their needs or natures। Whatever genetic quirks incline a youth towards one niche or another will be magnified over time। and जो आप एक बार चूज करते हो इवेंचुअली वो और ज्यादा मैग्नीफाई होता जाएगा over time as they develop the parts of themselves that allow them to flourish in those chosen worlds, right? So इसके बेसिस पे कौन सा ऑप्शन जो है आपको लगता है कि आंसर होना चाहिए? चलो एक बार हम लोग ऑप्शंस को देखते हैं। ए बोल रहा है although it is true that fraternal twins raised apart have remarkable similarities in most respects, still the intervention of environment has caused several differences in the way they behave। So वो बोल रहा है intervention of environment has caused several differences। अब यहाँ पे दो चीजें, fraternal twins की बात कहां से आ गई, एंड सेकेंड वो बोल रहा है intervention of environment has caused several differences in the way they behave। यानी कि ये वाला ऑप्शन जो है अभी भी एनवायरनमेंट की बात कर रहा है कि एनवायरनमेंट इंपैक्ट्स बिहेवियर, जबकि ऊपर ऑथर ने इसके उल्टा बोला हुआ है, एज पीपल ग्रो देयर जीन्स डिसाइड हाउ दे बिहेव, नॉट द एनवायरमेंट। तो ये कॉन्ट्रोडिक्शन है। अगर आपने इसको ढंग से इवेल्युएट किया तो ये कॉन्ट्रोडिक्शन है। आगे वो बोल रहा है, it is still not known whether the more abstract attributes like personality, intelligence, and likes and dislikes are gene coded into our DNA too. Uh, it is still not known. अभी भी हमें नहीं पता whether more abstract attributes like personality. So ये हम लोग तो टॉपिक शिफ्ट हो गया, ऊपर हम लोग जीन्स की बात कर रहे हैं, एंड उसी को लेके आइडिया जो है फ्लो हो रहा है, और यहाँ पे हम लोग पर्सनालिटी, इंटेलिजेंस एंड लाइक्स एंड डिसलाइक्स ऑफ जीन कोडेड इन आवर डीएनए उसके ऊपर बात करने लग गए। Not related. The environment then is not a stamping machine that pounds us into a shape, but a cafeteria of options from which our genes and our histories incline us to choose. ये वही वाली बात जो है उसको कंटिन्यू कर रहा है कि जीन्स एंड हिस्ट्रीज इंक्लाइन अस टू चूज। जब मैं यहाँ पे हिस्ट्रीज की बात कर रहा हूँ, डू नॉट टेक हिस्ट्री इन लिटरल टर्म्स। हिस्ट्रीज का मतलब है, अगेन जेनेटिक हिस्ट्री की वहां पे वो बात कर रहा है। सो बेसिकली ऑप्शन सी जो है वो आपका आंसर होगा। Why not D? But even knowing the totality of genetic predictors, there will be many things about ourselves that no genome scan will ever reveal. So बोल रहा है कि हमारे genetic predictors के बारे में हमें चीजें पता भी है, there will be many things जो हम लोग नहीं पता लगा पाएंगे। But then चीजें पता लगाना, नहीं पता लगा हमारा हमारा ऑब्जेक्टिव ही नहीं है। I hope you've understood it. Next, एक और क्वेश्चन। सो सी वाज द आंसर फॉर दिस वन वापस से आप पढ़ेंगे एंड ऑप्शंस आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे। द की लाइज इन आइडेंटिफाइंग और इंटरप्रेटिंग ऑप्शंस। सो फर्स्ट थिंग, मेन आइडिया टोन, सेकंड इंटरप्रिटेशन। So what should be the answer for this one? So basically, argument बोल रहा है कि Indians, we are credited with this fact that we invented zero. So how did we get to zero? We actually took two stages to get to zero. First, they overcame the problem of denoting empty spaces in place value notation by drawing a circle around the space where there was missing entry. जहाँ पे missing entry थी, वहाँ पे वो circle बना देते थे। This much Babylonians had done. The circle gave rise to the present day symbol for zero. Uh, the second step was to regard that extra symbol just like the other nine. Second step क्या था? उस सिंबल को दूसरे 9 सिंबल्स जैसा ही मानना। दिस meant developing rules for doing arithmetic using this additional symbol along with all others. So उस सिंबल को स्पेशल नहीं मान के दूसरे 9 सिंबल्स की तरह ही मानना, एंड उसके बाद फिर उन रूल्स को डेवलप करना। दिस सेकंड स्टेप, changing the underlying conception so that rules of arithmetic operated not on the numbers themselves but on symbols for the numbers was the key. सो और बोला ये जो सेकंड स्टेप है जहां पे हमने नंबर्स के ऊपर नहीं, सिंबल्स के ऊपर रूल्स डेवलप किए, दिस वाज द की। सो द करेक्ट आंसर फॉर दिस वन शुड बी, देखो फर्स्ट वाला क्या बोल रहा है, इंडीड आवर सेंस ऑफ नंबर्स डिपेंड्स ऑन सिंबल्स। कि भाई हमारा जो सेंस ऑफ नंबर्स है, कि हम नंबर्स से क्या समझते हैं, वो सिंबल्स के ऊपर डिपेंड करता है, एंड वी कैन नॉट डिवोर्स द सिंबल्स फ्रॉम नंबर्स दे रिप्रेजेंट। सो इसमें बता रखा है कि सिंबल्स एंड नंबर्स कितना क्लोजली लिंक्ड है। काफी क्लोज ऑप्शन है, बट देन ये इससे रिलेटेड नहीं है। ठीक है। नेक्स्ट, ओवर टाइम इट लेड टू अ चेंज इन कंसेप्शन ऑफ नंबर्स टू अ मोर एब्स्ट्रैक्ट वन दैट इंक्लूडेड जीरो। आइडिया को आगे लेके जा रहा है, क्यों? क्योंकि उसने बताया दिस सेकंड स्टेप वाज द की, जहां पे हमने नंबर्स नहीं सिंबल्स के ऊपर रूल्स डेवलप किए, एंड आप उसके साथ इसको रख के देखो, इट लेड टू चेंज इन द कंसेप्शन ऑफ नंबर्स टू अ मोर एब्स्ट्रैक्ट वन दैट इंक्लूडेड जीरो। Why not see? Everything becomes much clearer when there is special number to mark a space with no value. ये एक्चुअली इसको कंटिन्यू नहीं कर रहा, ये यहां पे जहां पे बोल रहा है कि एवरीथिंग बिकम्स मच क्लियरर व्हेन देयर इज अ स्पेशल सिंबल टू मार्क, बट देन जीरो को हमने स्पेशल सिंबल माना ही नहीं, हमने उसको बाकी 9 सिंबल्स जैसा ही माना था। सो ये तो स्पेशल सिंबल की बात कर रहा है, अगेन इट इज नॉट रिलेटेड। And D, a remarkable thing about this number system is that using just the 10 digits from 0 to 9, we can represent any of the infinitely many positive whole numbers. आर्ग्यूमेंट जो है शिफ्ट होता हुआ दिखाई दे रहा है। अब ये बोल रहा है कि हम लोग सारे होल नंबर्स को, इन्फिनिट होल नंबर्स को 0 to 9 के थ्रू रिप्रेजेंट कर सकते हैं। बट देन दिस वाज अबाउट डेवलपिंग अ सिस्टम, राइट? एंड ऑप्शन सी टॉक्स अबाउट दैट, सॉरी, ऑप्शन बी टॉक्स अबाउट दैट सिस्टम, इसीलिए आपका करेक्ट आंसर ऑप्शन बी होगा, ना कि ऑप्शन सी। ठीक है, सो बी इज योर आंसर। आई होप इट्स अंडरस्टूड। नेक्स्ट, अब की बार जैसा आपको कैट में देखने को मिला था, समवेयर इन द मिडिल ऑफ द आर्ग्यूमेंट एक स्पेस छूटा हुआ है। इसको करने का तरीका आपको देखना है कि क्या बात हो रही है। सो यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड द मेन आइडिया एंड द टोन, एंड जो ये वाला स्पेस आप ढूंढेंगे उसको आप देखेंगे कि क्या ये अलाइंड है आसपास वाली इंफॉर्मेशन के साथ या नहीं। दिस इज द बेस्ट वे टू सॉल्व दीज क्वेश्चंस। Guys, answer for this one. आप अगर देखें तो यहां पे जो करेक्ट आंसर है दैट शुड बी ऑप्शन डी। अब ऑप्शन डी क्यों? देखिए बेसिकली यहां पे वो क्या बोल रहा है कि प्रेसिडेंट फ्रैंकलिन रूजवेल्ट ने he threatened to increase number of judges from 9 to 15, right? And he reasoned that packing the court with 6 new judges would bring about a new majority that would side with the government. एक ऐसी मेजोरिटी आएगी जो गवर्नमेंट के साथ साइड करेगी। डैश, फॉर इन 1937 जस्टिस ओवन रॉबर्ट्स changed his vote to side with the government leaning judges, and Roosevelt thereafter did not need to pursue court packing. So basically हुआ क्या कि he threatened कि आप अगर ऐसा नहीं करोगे तो ऐसा हो जाएगा, एंड देन मेजोरिटी वुड बी विद द गवर्नमेंट, राइट? एंड यहाँ पे लास्ट में क्या हुआ, लास्ट में हमको ये बता रखा है कि बाद में ऐसा करने की जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ी, बिकॉज ओवन रॉबर्ट्स चेंज्ड हिज वोट टू साइड विद द गवर्नमेंट लीनिंग जजेस। एंड यहाँ पे ऐसा करने की जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ी, तो मुझे करेक्ट आंसर क्या मिला? ऑप्शन डी। शॉर्टली देयर आफ्टर अ स्विच इन टाइम सेव्ड द 9। सो बेसिकली वो 9 से 15 होने वाले थे, लेकिन वो नहीं हुए, एंड 9 पीपल वर यू नो basically saved. Why? Because of a switch. किसका? जस्टिस ओवन रॉबर्ट्स का, इसी चीज को, ये एक्सप्लेनेशन है किसका, उस स्विच का। तो यानी कि ये स्विच जो है वो यहां पे आना चाहिए। Why not A, B, and C? The judiciary refused to let a Trojan horse into its citadel of independence. But then यहाँ पे अगर मैं देखूं तो वो बोल रहा है कि ऐसा बाद में करने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ी, बिकॉज जस्टिन ओवन रॉबर्ट्स ने स्विच कर लिया था। तो बेसिकली दिस गोज अगेंस्ट द आर्ग्यूमेंट, तो ये गलत हो गया। द रिजल्टेंट पब्लिक बैकलैश पुट पेड टू हिज प्लान्स, लेकिन ये बोल रहा है कि प्लान सक्सेसफुल नहीं हो पाया, जबकि ये वाली लाइन बता रही है कि प्लान सक्सेसफुल हो गया था, तो ये भी गलत। एंड हिज रिलेशनशिप विद जुडिशरी वाज फ्रॉट विद कन्फ्रंटेशन एंड कॉन्फ्लिक्ट। बट देन कन्फ्रंटेशन एंड कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऐसा कुछ अपन को बताया हुआ ही नहीं है। इनफैक्ट जजेस यू नो lean towards the lean towards those judges that were siding with the government. So ये भी गलत हो गया। The correct answer for this one is delta. I hope it's understood by you. So इस तरीके से आप ये वाले क्वेश्चन जो है वो सॉल्व करते हैं। नेक्स्ट टू कम इज अ पैसेज। अगेन लेवल ऑफ डिफिकल्टी एग्जैक्टली वैसा ही जैसा आपको कैट में देखने को मिलता है। लेट्स सी हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू आर एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस पैसेज। सो ये रहा आपके सामने। आर्ग्यूमेंट का जो लेंथ है वो अराउंड 350 वर्ड्स का है। सो आप इसको एक बार पढ़ें। आई डिस्कस द पैसेज विथ यू एंड उसके बाद फिर क्वेश्चंस। ऑलराइट, सो इस पैसेज को हम लोग देखते हैं। बेसिकली कैंट टॉक्स अबाउट यू नो फ्रीडम एंड प्रैक्टिकल लॉ। बेसिकली ऑथर यही बोल रहा है कि कैन के हिसाब से फ्रीडम एंड प्रैक्टिकल लॉ जो है वो दीज आर टू कॉइन्स ऑफ द सेम, टू साइड्स ऑफ द सेम कॉइन। आगे वो बोल रहा है कि कैन का जो यू नो कैन का जो फिलॉसफी है ऑन दिस पर्टिकुलर एस्पेक्ट वो बाकी उसकी बाकी फिलॉसफी से ज्यादा इवॉल्व होता है। ठीक है, सो वो बोल रहा है कि our subjection to morality implies that we must be free. Kant's argument that freedom implies categorical imperative is brief. If I'm free to step back from my inclinations, those inclinations cannot provide a definitive reason to act. वो बोल रहा है कि कोई भी काम करने के लिए आपके पास एक रीजन होना चाहिए, और वो रीजन जो है यूनिवर्सली एक्सेप्टेबल होना चाहिए, ना कि आपका इंक्लिनेशन। इंक्लिनेशन मतलब आई वांट टू डू दिस वर्क बट व्हाई, देयर शुड बी अ प्रैक्टिकल रीजन फॉर इट। देयर कैन बी टू रीजंस, फर्स्ट अ प्रैक्टिकल रीजन, सेकंड माय इंक्लिनेशन। सो कैंट जो है वो इंक्लिनेशन को डिनाई कर रहा है और कह रहा है कि प्रैक्टिकल रीजन होना चाहिए। इंक्लिनेशंस मोटिवेट बट दे डू नॉट कंपेल। If someone asks me why I did something, inclinations may explain my action. uh, the action helped me achieve something I wanted, but there is still open question. Should I have acted on those inclinations? An example may help here. फिर उसने वो example दिया and वो बोल रहा है pushing you out of the way might satisfy my desire to get to the front of the queue. The desire motivates me. We might say that it provides reason for me. For other people, my desire only explains my rudeness. तो इसीलिए कैन बोल रहा है कि आपको जो भी करना है उसके पीछे देयर शुड बी प्रैक्टिकल रीजन एंड इट शुड बी एक्सेप्टेबल, राइट? क्योंकि वो इंक्लिनेशन शायद मेरे लिए वर्क करेगा but other people might still take it my rudeness. It does not supply others with a reason to endorse my behavior. It does not justify my doing this. Compare the entry on reasons for action, justification, motivation, explanation. Because I wanted to, maybe a motivating reason for me. It may be explanatory reason for other people, but it is not justificatory reason. वो justification नहीं दे रहा, ठीक है? How can we find reasons that others should also accept? Kant claims that only possibility is to look to the mere form of giving universal law. मतलब वो ऐसा होना चाहिए जो सब लोग accept करें. There is, he says, only a single categorical imperative, act only according to that maxim, through which you can at the same time will that it become a universal law. ठीक है? This principle is categorical, it's imperative. When our action passes this test, we have done our duty. सो बेसिकली जो भी हम लोग एक्शन कर रहे हैं वो किस रीजन से होना चाहिए? ऐसे रीजन से होना चाहिए जो यूनिवर्सली एक्सेप्टेबल हो, ठीक है? ना कि ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ इंक्लिनेशन। मोटा मोटा आइडिया इस पूरे पैसेज का यही है। सो हम लोग देखते हैं क्वेश्चन नंबर वन। Which assumption permits concluding that freedom necessitates a pure non-instrumental practical reason? Correct answer for this one is, if inclination failed to justify action, an alternative source of justification must exist. So basically, which assumption permits concluding that freedom necessitates a pure non-instrumental practical reason? So author ने बोला कि दो reasons हो सकते हैं, एक आपका inclination and एक वो reason जो universally acceptable हो। तो उसका assumption क्या है? assumption ये है कि inclination के fail होने पर एक दूसरा रीजन जो है वो एग्जिस्ट करता है। अगर दूसरा रीजन एग्जिस्ट नहीं करेगा तो कैंट का ये जो पूरा आर्ग्यूमेंट है वो आर्ग्यूमेंट आई मीन इट वुड फॉल फ्लैट, ठीक है? फ्रीडम ऑलवेज इनेबल्स एजेंट्स टू रिजेक्ट ऑल इंक्लिनेशन। फ्रीडम अलाउ करता है इंक्लिनेशन को रिजेक्ट करने में या नहीं करने में, उसके बारे में बात नहीं बोली है, ठीक है? नेक्स्ट, यूनिवर्सलाइजेबल मैक्सिम्स कैन नॉट अराइज फ्रॉम एम्पिरिकल डिजायर because desires fluctuate unpredictably among rational agents universally. वो बोल रहा है universalizable maxims cannot arise from empirical desires. ऑथर का आर्ग्यूमेंट इस चीज के ऊपर डिपेंड नहीं करता कि मैक्सिम्स जो है वो एम्पिरिकल डिजायर से आ सकती है या नहीं आ सकती। सो दिस इज कंप्लीटली इररेलेवेंट। एंड डी, प्रैक्टिकल रीजन अटेन्स प्योरिटी only when detached from empirical content, irrespective of agent's freedom status. वो तो बोल रहा है कि freedom status क्या है उससे फर्क नहीं पड़ता। Practical reason attains purity only when detached from empirical content. So ये तो freedom की बात ही नहीं कर रहा, जबकि entire passage is about freedom. So B cannot be your answer either. I hope it's understood. Next, question number two. basically, यहाँ पे बोल रहा है which statement most strengthens Kant's claim that inclinations never justify, only explain human actions. Inclinations जो है वो कभी भी justify नहीं करते हैं, केवल explain करते हैं human actions को. So the correct answer is option C. वहां पे बोल रहा है philosophers agree only universally shareable reasons warrant moral approval. कि यूनिवर्सली वो बोल रहा है यूनिवर्सली शेयरेबल रीजंस वारंट मॉरल अप्रूवल वेयर एज डिजायर्स वेरी इडियोसिंक्रेटिकली बिटवीन इंडिविजुअल्स. जो डिजायर्स है वो ह्यूमन टू ह्यूमन चेंज होती रहती है. हर एक ह्यूमन की डिजायर जो है वो सेम हो ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है, लेकिन यूनिवर्सली शेयरेबल रीजंस जो है दे वारंट मॉरल अप्रूवल. इसीलिए डिजायर्स जो है वो आपके एक्सप्लेन एक्शंस को एक्सप्लेन करती है लेकिन वो जस्टिफाई नहीं करती है. सो द करेक्ट आंसर फॉर दिस वन इज चार्ली. एक क्यों नहीं, एक्सपेरिमेंट शो डिजायर्स कंसिस्टेंटली प्रिडिक्ट चॉइसेस इवन व्हेन पार्टिसिपेंट्स जज those choices morally impermissible afterward. बोल रहा है कि एक्सपेरिमेंट ये दिखाता है कि desires consistently predict choices even when participants judge those choices morally impermissible afterward. So basically ये तो केवल यही बता रहा है कि डिजायर्स जो है वो आपकी चॉइसेस प्रिडिक्ट करती है. अगर आपकी डिजायर ये है तो चॉइस ऐसी होगी. बट देन it has got nothing to do with justification and explanation of human actions. So it is completely irrelevant. B. Surveys reveal people cite wants as primary motives, yet deny those wants deserve social endorsement. लोग जो है wants को प्राइमरी मोटिव मानते हैं, yet deny those wants. ये तो कह रहा है कि लोग जो है उन wants को डिनाई कर देते हैं, जबकि उन्हीं वॉन्ट्स के चलते तो उन लोगों के एक्शंस जो हैं वो सामने आते हैं लेकिन वो जस्टिफाई नहीं कर पाते. सो इवन दिस इज इनकरेक्ट. एंड डी. हिस्टोरिकल कोर्ट्स दैट privileged rulers wishes over common sense duty are now condemned. This is completely irrelevant and ये आपका आंसर नहीं हो सकता. So the correct answer for this one is option C. Next, if categorical imperative were conditional, अगर categorical imperative conditional होते, how would Kant's freedom, morality, reciprocity change? कि भाई freedom and morality both are reciprocal of each other. वो कैसे change हो जाता अगर categorical imperative conditional होता तो? What should be the answer? So the correct answer for this one should be delta. उस केस में रेसिप्रोसिटी जो है कि भाई ये वो दोनों एक दूसरे के रेसिप्रोकल होते, रेसिप्रोसिटी वुड कोलैप्स बिकॉज कंडीशनल ड्यूटीज नाइदर प्रीसपोज नॉर आर entailed by autonomous inclination transcending freedom. So the correct answer for this one would be delta. I hope it's understood. And last question on this one. In the passage, the phrase no ifs or buts serve which of the argumentative role? नो इफ्स एंड बट्स जो है वो आपको पैसेज के एंड में दे रखे हैं. सो ये क्या रोल प्ले करता है? तो बेसिकली नो इफ्स एंड बट्स को ऑथर ने यहां पे यूज किया एंड दिस वन वाज सिंपल एज कंपेयर टू द प्रीवियस वन. सो वहां पे वो बोल रहा है हाउ कैन वी फाइंड रीजंस दैट अदर्स शुड आल्सो एक्सेप्ट. कैन क्लेम्स दैट ओनली पॉसिबिलिटी इज टू look to the mere form of giving universal law. He says only a single categorical imperative acting according to the maximum through which you can, at the same time, will that it become a universal law. This principle is categorical. No ifs, no buts. So the correct answer for this one is boy. It emphasizes the imperative's unconditional nature, reinforcing claim. So the correct answer is B. Boy. आई होप इसको आप समझ पाए। सो यहाँ पे ये पैसेज जो है वो खत्म होता है। आई होप आपको जो भी आज हमने डिस्कस किया वो समझ में आया। सो डू लेट अस नो इन द कमेंट्स बॉक्स कि और हम लोग ऐसे कैसे सेशंस जो है वो आपके लिए लेके आ सकते हैं। आज हमारी तरफ से इतना ही। थैंक यू ऑल फॉर योर टाइम टुडे। यू ऑल हैव अ वंडरफुल इवनिंग अहेड।